The City Council Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, will meet remotely on Thursday. Will meet in council chambers on Thursday, April 21st, 2022 at 6 p.m. for the purposes of discussing the possible changes to Chapter 44, Vehicles for Hire, Section 38, Fares Established, and other concerns related to taxi livery companies in Salem and claims. The meeting shall be held as a hybrid meeting. Councilors shall meet in person while members of the public shall participate remotely in accordance with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and as amended by Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. The subcommittee meetings are held to take action for the purpose of making recommendations to the full council. Individuals may participate remotely in the meeting via a remote participation platform called Zoom. Members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting may access the remote participation meeting through any one of the following ways. Click on the link zoom.us to join the webinar. ID 833-2657-6454, password 000788. Or via telephone 877-853-5257 with the webinar ID and password noted above. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so on matters not requiring a public hearing, we will post on the City of Salem's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Tonight's agenda is possible changes to Chapter 44, Vehicles for Hire, Section 38, Fares Established, and other concerns related to taxi livery companies. And then the OLA committee will move on to claims. Notice of this meeting was posted on April 5th, 2022 at 9:46 a.m. In attendance in person are Councilors Cohen, Presnewski, Varela, and myself, Riccardi, and virtually is Councilor Dominguez. Hello. We also have an attendance from the Committee of the Whole, Councilor Watson-Felt, Councilor McLean, and Councilor President Marcillo. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the first hybrid, the second hybrid, first hybrid OLA meeting. So this evening, first we have on the agenda are possible changes to Chapter 44, Vehicles for Hire, Section 48, Fares Established, and other concerns related to taxi livery companies. Also in attendance from the Salem Police Department, we have Lieutenant Tucker with us and Officer Tronkoska with us. And we also have representatives from the City of Salem taxi companies. Thank you all for joining this evening. Oh, and also we have City Solicitor Beth Renard. Nice to be in the same room now. So I think I'll kick off the meeting, if you don't mind, I'll do a quick summary of the order that was presented, which is basically what was noted on the agenda, to discuss the fares that are established and other concerns. So for the fares established, I'll give a little background. The fares for taxi companies are noted in our Book of Ordinances. The last update that we had to the fares was in 2012, so that's about 10 years ago now. So I think it's fair time to have another conversation around that and get some feedback, and also conversation around other concerns related to the taxi companies in Salem. If no direct questions from the committee, I would like to throw it over to the officers in the room this evening to perhaps give us some background as well around the meeting tonight. And I will have to, sorry, please speak into the mic. I know it's very awkward, but yeah, thank you.
So councilors, I'm Officer Trunco, so I'm in charge of the hackney licenses and liveries. Part of the reason we're here today is because the livery taxi companies have asked for an increase in what they charge the customers. So that's one of the reasons. The other is markings to vehicles and a couple of amendments, hopefully, to the city ordinance on those issues.
Thank you. So should we start with the fares? Does that sound like a reasonable start? Okay. I don't have the ordinance in front of me. Let me see if I can pull that up. So our current fare established is $5.50 1 mile for 1 mile. Each additional 1/5 of mile is 25 cents, and each additional passenger over 2 is 50 cents per ride. I think I would like to throw it, I guess, to the officers first, if you have any commentary on the fares, and then open it up for discussion.
Councilor Riccardi, or councilors, if you look at the paperwork, it says $5.50. They've been charging $6 for a while now, so that's inaccurate. On the, well, it's accurate here, but what they charge has been $6 up to the recent increase of what they're asking. So that's where we stand on that, on the ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to, Julio, if you, oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Varela?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. I just wanted to note that after some quick research this evening, calling around a couple different livery services, the going rate right now they're charging per mile is $7 a mile.
Counselor, if I may, the other day I was doing a couple inspections of liveries, liveries, i.e. taxis. That is correct. They've requested that we, or that the council give them an increase in price. Unfortunately, before the council approved it, they went ahead and increased the price to the fares prior to the city approving it. It's also, getting back to that, I also saw it, again, while inspecting them, I saw a pricing in the back, and it had the list of pricing of what they charge customers. And I believe it had an effective date of March that they began this. I'm not totally sure on it. I can look for it again, but they have been charging the $7 prior to the approval of City Council.
Thank you. Can I ask, is there any recourse for the ordinance not followed for the fares not being charged correctly?
I'll take this. Violations of that particular section, of most sections, is $100.
Thank you. Yep. Have any violation fines been charged so far?
No, we haven't issued any for the unapproved fare increase.
Okay, thank you. Any, Councilor Presnowski, did you have your hand up? Oh, sorry. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Any of the whole?
So do I understand correctly, the requested increase is just to that 7 number that other livery services are charging, or are they requesting something higher?
To clarify, they're requesting $7. What we're referencing is the taxi fare. Taxis being the traditional taxi that you see with the meter. Supposed to be $5.50 for the first mile, 25 cents for each fifth of a mile. So that they'd like to raise that to $7 for the initial fee, the 25 cents per fifth mile beyond. Another part of the conversation tonight is delivery fee. That's the unmarked vehicle that you see with the livery plates. That's a set fare from point A to point B. Has to be arranged by telephone, and they have a rate schedule for that. So if you want to go from downtown to the grocery store, it's one cost. If you want to go a little further, it's $1 more. That's not what we're talking about yet tonight, just the taxi itself. Just to give a little more background, last year, what's happened in the industry is, used to be that we would license 35 livery vehicles and 50 taxis. The cost to insure the taxis has gone double, I think, just in the past couple of years. It's very expensive to insure a taxi, and the business dropped off. The traditional taxi businesses dropped way off. So they asked last year if we could flip the numbers. So we did last year. We flipped to, we'll grant 50 livery licenses and 35 taxis. So that's part of the conversation too. 35 taxis is more than enough. 50 liveries, depending on which company you talk to. May or may not suitable. They might want 40. That's the nature of the business. Most people are taking a set fit. Officer Trunco.
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. I do have one more question for the officers. So what I understood you say before was that this has been up to $6 for some time now. The ordinance calls for an annual review of the meters set as a part of the annual weights and measure review. So when was, has this increase been timed between weights and measures? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do, Counselor. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. I inspect the vehicles once a year. I can tell you they don't use meters. That's a fact. They have them in the vehicles. When I go there, turn them on. They do work.
And they're
But-
set to 550?
That's correct. But the meters, they don't use them at all. I know that for a fact. It's a lot of the times, it's more convenient for them in Salem. It's more convenient for them to charge a flat rate. Not for them, but for local people, for us that use taxis and liveries, or taxis. That's what they do. They set a fee of $6. City Council has it at $5.50. They do $6. Recently, they are asking for the increase. That's what they charge somebody here local. Now, if you go over the bridge into Lynn, it might be like $10 or $15. They have a set rate, which,
Is in violation of the ordinance.
well, there's a lot of stuff in the ordinance that need to be fixed, and I believe that's for another time. Or later.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a good time to start all of those conversations to highlight and come back to. Councilor Varela?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. After further review of this, what I did also see is that anything coming from Salem, outside of Salem, going to Danvers, Peabody, goes to $12 an hour. That was actively what the going rate with a couple of our taxi services here in Salem are charged from Salem to another destination. So just to put that in perspective.
Councilor Cohen?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. Through you to the officers. If we're not talking about delivery today, just the taxis, I know my experience is that it's a set rate. And they tell you, last time I did it was $5, probably 3 or 4 years ago. My concern is that if they're asking for an increase, does it make sense to you that we would mandate that they use the meters?
I would tend to agree with you, Counselor. I believe that would impact the community, being that, $7 from here to Walmart would be reasonable. Then you go into the $7 just to get in there, and then every fifth of a mile, it's, an additional 25 cents, so we can add up. It'd be more costly to the community than using the meter.
So if I could follow up. So from the resident perspective, it's probably better that they just give a set rate. Because if someone's just going from, North Salem to Walmart, that's going to be a lot more than $7.
That's correct. That would be correct.
And I think there's some benefit to having some certainty when someone calls, and books a cab, and they know it's going to be $7. Because it used to be, my wife has a bed and breakfast, so she would always tell people, oh, if you use the Salem, it's going to be a lot cheaper if you get to the airport or whatever. And she would tell people, hey, it's X to get you where you need to go in Salem.
That's correct, Counselor. One of the charges that they charge from, let's say, Salem or Boston Logan Airport would be $55. If you use, for instance, when I land at Boston, I would take one of their taxis. I'm paying about $70 from Boston to here. So from here to the airport, taxi, sir. So on a taxi, it would be $70 from Boston to here, where from Salem to there, I believe it's like $50 or $55 that they charge. Council Cohen, on the other comment that you made about the chart, so that the community would know what they're pricing, I was going to bring that up to ask council to make it part of the city ordinance or whatnot, to have each vehicle have a rate sheet posted in the vehicle at all times, so everybody knows exactly what they're paying for. And which also leads me, now that we're on this subject, is also for Halloween. I was notified that they were price gouging the tourists by doubling the prices. I heard about it. I have a good person, good intel that told me about it. Unfortunately, they didn't want to go on record. So I've called each individual company owner and I advised them to knock it off. That was not acceptable. Again, I didn't have the hard evidence, but I do have somebody that told me about it, but they didn't want to come on record and saying it. So they do charge, or they were at one point, and I'd like to put a stop to that.
Thank you. And I will note, Councilor Dominguez, I saw that your hand was up in one moment. I would just like to make a comment on that Halloween increase. For taxi service, if it's being charged by the mileage, I get that, but you're not moving during Halloween. So perhaps there's some sort of time or something. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
So, Counselor, on that note, the meters, I believe it's a time mile scenario. So there is so it counts the amount of from the minute you get in there, there's a timer. So that timer also counts. It's not just miles. There's a timer that adds to it.
Okay,
I know
thank you.
the-
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Councilor Dominguez, did you have a?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope you can hear me. I had a little bit of issue listening
Yes, we
and
can.
understanding most of the comments, which I pick up some, but not at all. My comments is based on the very initial comments that the officer make on that. There is a lot of things that need to be corrected in the ordinance. I think that this is the time that we might take the opportunity to put things online in regard with that industry, because I think that there are a lot of factors that we need to keep into consideration. One of them is that Uber, or the competition they have, also the local ride that we have is one of the implications, and most importantly, I think that's why they are asking for an increase on the fare, is the inflation. So those factors, among others, need to be taken into consideration. Not say that they had to follow whatever ordinance we put in place. That's why I say at the beginning of my comments that this is a great opportunity to put things in the right order. So everything being on place so they can continue to do business. I think for the most part, the police under Officer Robert and any other officer who is working on that, Officer Tucker, have done a great job. And I think they need the industry, the taxis industry need to follow all of the laws that is being presented. That's why I think we need to become, I don't know how long we had that we haven't revised that ordinance. Maybe the city solicitor through you, Madam Chair, can answer that question. How long was the last time that we sit down as a city government and revise the ordinance and make sure that everything is in place? You know, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Did I lose you?
Counselor, revised the number of liveries and the number of taxis in 2019, I believe. The last time that the rates were adjusted was, I believe, 2013. So it's overdue.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
I don't know, when the discussion is over, I would like to make a motion, but I think this is not the right time. Go ahead, continue with the conversation, and thank you.
Counselor Varela?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. I think what we also have to take in consideration because of companies like Uber and Lyft are basically, they base their rates depending on peak hours, their rates will change. And I think that's where some of the unfairness comes from with a rate that is completely from city ordinance. And when you're on a Saturday night or a Halloween weekend, your rate through Uber or Lyft might actually double or triple because of just the sheer amount of people looking for rides. And I think that's where we, in writing or amending this ordinance, we need to account for that and make sure it's fair for our livery and taxi service here as well. So I think that's where some of the contention lies.
Counselor, may I?
Yep.
So a few years ago, we had a meeting, myself, Laura, Julio's now in her position, with the taxi operators. I don't recognize any of them tonight, but it might be an opportunity for us to meet myself, Julio, and some of the operators and the police officers to look at all of this and look at other communities and what they're doing and come back to the council with recommendations that we all recommend that would be good for the city and good for the residents and good for the taxi operators. Just a thought.
Thank you. Yes, it does seem like there is a lot that should be reviewed during this process. And I definitely don't think we'll be solving it this evening. So I appreciate the offer of a off time meeting. Councilor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. I just wanted to echo what the good city solicitor just said, which was that we also don't have any point of context for median area rates. So if there was an opportunity to gather more community-based from multiple cities and towns, or at least cities that are comparable to ours in Massachusetts, it would be really helpful, I think, to the conversation.
Agreed. I actually was Googling that earlier today to try to find out not only what surrounding cities charged, but do surrounding cities codify the rate in an ordinance as well? Like, is it generally, is that a standard practice? It seems, I don't know, it just seemed a little odd to me to have it codified in it, but that just might be standard practice and something that's done.
Thank you,
So
Chair.
really,
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. I also wanted to mention that look at a city like Revere, they do not have any licenses for livery or taxis. So we do have to look at, so the city of Revere does not have, they do not grant any licenses for livery. Through their code of ordinances, there's nothing in writing for a rate or even having licenses. So I think, we have to be mindful of who we look at, because some cities that are large like Revere don't even have licensing.
Councilor Presnowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's obvious that nothing has been done since 2012 or 2013 to entertain any raise for the taxi fares. And things have changed a lot in the last 10 years. And it seems like they've taken upon themselves to try to fend for themselves out there, and that's understandable. Also, understand that the Salem Police Department seems to have understood that and is lenient with the non-issuance of any violations, but they are concerned about where we're going with this and want us to come up with some kind of a resolution of fairness. So with what's been said tonight, I'd like to make a motion based on what our city solicitor, Beth Renard, said, that this matter go to negotiations between herself, the taxi cab companies, and the police department to establish some kind of fairness because of the lack of any talk in the last 10 years, so that we can negotiate something fair that will satisfy all. So I'd like to make that motion.
I want to second that motion.
Councilor Presnowski makes a motion for the city solicitor to meet with the taxi and livery companies
Representative from the taxi companies and with the Salem Police Department.
and then report back to the committee with suggestions for edits to the existing ordinance and
Any
relation.
changes in the ordinance, correct.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Cohen?
I'd like to, thank you, Chair Riccardi, I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we set a time for them to report back to us so that these changes could go in place before it gets too far into the season. So I'm just gonna say, would end of May work? So my friendly amendment is that this group that's gonna meet per the motion, report back to the OLA committee by the end of May.
Accept the friendly amendment? Okay.
Sure.
Still under discussion for the motion. I'd like to also to have that under discussion for comments from our police department, and also we haven't opened it up to public comment yet.
We'd like to do that. We'd like to work with the solicitor and the companies to draft the ordinance to suit today's needs, what the riders need, what the companies need, something they can work within. I think it's overdue. Some of the language is antiquated. It doesn't reference today's condition for the business. We'll ask one question until we come back, how the committee would like to address the current fare situation. Allow the $6. Oh, they're at 7, I'm sorry. How many fares? How many, would we allow that to continue? 6 isn't really, it's either the past practice prior to Officer Troncoso taking over. Guidance on that. The matter continue for a while if you'd like.
Thank you. I would like to open it up to public comment as well, if there's any comments from the companies or if anyone is joined online.
Okay. So in some context, to my left is Jose of Which City Taxi. He was basically explaining that he thinks, they all think generally that people do like the fixed price, that if they see a meter, they tend to not want to pay the price on the meter. They tend to just want to know what the price will be before they actually start their ride. So they seem to be all in agreement. Generally, a fixed rate is favorable.
Thank you. I will ask later if we don't mind providing contact information or names as to the representatives that were here this evening. So when we follow up with those meetings, we can reach out and schedule, if you don't mind helping with that, Julio. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, after the meeting, I assume.
Yes, yes, whenever works, if you could help collect contact
Sure.
information.
I'll let them know this right now.
Thank you. And I believe there were a few members from the public. Oh, no, not anymore. If there were, they could raise their hand to speak. Any comments from the council or the committee? Councilor Watson-Felt?
Thank you. Not being a member of the committee, Chair Riccardi, I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. I think that what we've just heard makes a lot of sense, but my one concern is how is that kept, like, how is there a record of that kept and how is that tracked? In the event, I agree, we need to make this fair for everybody involved, but I also want to protect our citizens as best we can. And I do feel a little anxious about some lack of clarity around that from ride to ride. There's just an opportunity for, for taking advantage of fares. Not that I assume anyone would, but just, from a letter of the law perspective. So I'm just curious if that's recorded somehow.
So council, to answer your question, it should be recorded. They're supposed to have a book in each vehicle, the time, where they picked up the person, where they're bringing them to, how much they charged. Same thing as the dispatch area. Unfortunately, they don't because times have moved up. Everything is electronically now. That's why I have asked, and they've pretty much put them themselves. That's what I was looking through my phone. They've actually put rate sheets on the back of the liveries or taxis, which I'm hoping that it gets adopted, that it be, I don't know if I'm using the proper verbiage, but to be mandatory on each vehicle. So it's not the community by an individual operator. For example, if it's $7, I don't want a single operator because the dispatcher, the company, doesn't know what that operator is charging. The operator can pick you up anywhere and it's $7, but then he can turn around and say, well, no, it's not $7, it's $15. And you, the client, is going to say, well, I got no choice. I got to pay the $15. That's why I would like that to be a permanent thing on every single vehicle that I inspect.
May I make a follow-up comment? For the group that will be coming together on this sort of working group for further discussion, I'm wondering if you would consider also having some kind of hotline number or some telephone number also required be printed on that fare sheet in the event that someone is taken advantage of. And that may already be the case, but just for further consideration. Thank you.
Council, we don't have that right now. Thank you. I love that because I get a lot of complaints, but people don't want to go on records. And I'll tell you that these guys here, for the most part, they do a very good job at that. They usually handle the complaints. If not, I'll hear it and I'll try and contact the customers themselves. Unfortunately, when it comes to speaking to me, whether it's out of fear, whatever it is, they want nothing to do with it. But I agree with you, Counselor. I believe that my number should be on there as the issuing authority.
Your direct cell? No. Thank you for offering that up.
Counselor, I do have a department issued phone, which is, they all know. No.
I actually had a question as well earlier when we were talking about fares and what prices were in what other cities. I kind of saw you shuffling around, so I don't know if you had that information of what the surrounding communities are currently charging.
We have some older information from last year. Cambridge, I thought I had it put up. Bear with me. See, the discount for a elder is $5 in 2021. Peabody has a very complicated fee structure with zones. It ranges from $4.35 up to $10.45. We probably do the geographic size of Peabody. We have others with Beverly, Natick, we looked at Natick not so much for the fare structure, but they were very good, very clean ordinance language. It sounds like, I don't want to prolong this. It sounds like even the taxis that they operate at a greater expense, they have an inclination to run them as a livery system with a set fee. I'll leave that to the legislators in the room. If you allow that, we don't really care as the police. They do provide a very good, very valuable service to people who don't drive. They have their regular customers. They transport students and the elderly at a lower rate. They do provide a valuable service to the community. We want them to be able to continue doing that, and will be profitable enough to keep rolling. I don't know if we'll get to the point where a taxi will live without a meter, or they could run the meter and still charge the flat fee, I guess, as long as the customer feels that they're getting it. The complaints generally are either every now and then we get a poor driver, or a customer doesn't ride them all the time and thinks maybe they are taken advantage of. I will note too, part of an earlier conversation, it's $5.50 to get in, ride a mile. They're not allowed to charge wait time in traffic. Excuse me, specifically forbidden in our ordinance. So they have the initial fee and then the each fifth of a mile fee, regardless of traffic. So the gossip we heard of the Halloween gouging, we just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'd say that, like anything, 99% of the drivers are honest and fair, but then sometimes we want to make a little more money.
Thank you. Okay. And I guess we'll circle back to your question of what to do in the interim. Councilor Morcillo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not being a member of the committee, through you to the officers, can you go over again what the difference between a livery and a taxi is, and why we don't have all just liveries if that's the way they're using them?
Currently, under the ordinance, a taxi is marked. It has roof beacon, the taxi roof beacon, meter on board. Actually, the ordinance is kind of so old, it requires a two-way radio, which they haven't had for 30 or 40 years. Taxis you can wave a taxi down, you can hail it on the street, and they'll pull over and pick you up. And that's where the meter comes into play, because you haven't made any arrangements. You've hailed them and they pull over, and you need to know what it's going to cost you. Taxis can wait at the train station. We have had taxi stands in the past, although the only one that comes to mind is next to the Derby restaurant. I believe it may not even be in the ordinance anymore. So that's the taxi. They can do like the quick ride. They could be hailed, and they can wait. They can wait outside restaurants, the train station, things like that. The liveries, the ordinance language is old, and it kind of mixes liveries and the concept of a limousine. So it doesn't really work for what they do. So the livery is you call the company, tell them where you are and where you want to go, and they quote you a flat fee, and that's it. There's no mileage charge. You can't hail a livery on the street. There's a violation for that. We would issue a violation for that. And for them, the key difference is the taxi insurance is roughly double the cost of insuring a livery vehicle. We're not exactly sure why the insurance industry did that, but that's part of the reason a lot of them want to move to the livery system. There isn't a lot of taxi business in town. Enough that one or two of the companies want to keep a couple of taxis going. And they may have something to do with out-of-town business too. But most of them are doing the livery style business. And it just has to be rearranged and fee is set. Does that answer?
Yeah, so just to follow up, so do you know what percentage of their businesses from hailing on the street or from waiting at the train station, for instance?
We don't really have a number, but I would put it at less than 1%, just to throw a number out. It's
So,
very-
so then
very
why is there the desire to hold on to the taxi licenses?
That's a good question. You have, maybe I'll turn that over to Officer Troncoso.
So there really isn't a desire to hold the taxi licenses. The city, the way the city ordinance is written, again, it's the definition of a livery and a taxi. Right now, they're using liveries like taxis, with the exception of that I don't let them be flagged down. So for instance, if I see one of them on a livery, get them flagged down, and I catch them, they're in violation of the ordinance. For instance, if you hear the council call for, which city, Salem, AmeriCab taxi, and I see a livery pull up in front of City Hall and they pick you up, I'm gonna ask them to provide me a contract between you and that livery. And if they don't have it, they are in violation of the city ordinance as it's written now. They, based on the increase in insurance, want to go to livery, and which we don't really have an issue with it. I think it's more of being able to, how do I say, be able to right, there'd be an option, and I'm afraid that if we give them all liveries, then another company is going to come in. For instance, another company can come in and take all the taxi licenses and says, wait a minute, you're jumping into my business by having deliveries operate as taxis. And that's the fear. And there's also the medallion issue, which I know that Lynn issues medallions. And they basically, the company, like New York, I don't know if you guys are familiar with New York, like in order to get one of those medallions, I'm not saying Salem's anything close to it, but you'd have to pay like $1 million to get one of those. I don't want that. That's what's happening in Lynn too, where I believe it's 3 companies and the 3 companies have them all. I don't want to issue them all because I want other businesses, if they come in, I want to be able to have those licenses. And we're talking, I'm talking about liveries as well. So does that answer your question or no?
Counselor McLean?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi, not being a member of the committee. Excuse me. Through you to the officers, can you speak a little bit to how you interact with the taxi companies and drivers in terms of driving behavior, violations, what kind of goes into your recommendations when somebody applies for a license? I think a lot of that is probably regulatory. I don't see a lot of it in the ordinance itself, so I'd like to hear a little bit about how that works.
Okay, so what I like to see, not what I like to see, what's been the practice is a person would talk to one of the gentlemen here. They would get their approval, or they say, for instance, listen, I'm going to work for Salem Taxi. They come here, they get an application, they come and see me. I go through a query background, I do fingerprints, I talk to them, try and get a general understanding of why they want to become an operator and see if they're fit for the city of Salem, for the community. I want to make sure that when they walk in there, they're clean. I want to make sure that, they're not smelling like marijuana, because if they're coming to see me and they're smelling like marijuana, guess what? If my mother or my daughter or my sons or your sons got in that cab, you don't want an operator smelling like that. I'm sorry. So that's what I look for. Other than that, the city of Salem does have a pretty decent query background, which I do. And if they pass those, they're issued a temporary license by me, and then the city council will vote on it. And That's usually the process. As to each individual, I've gotten to know them all. They call me, they have my number, I call them. I mean, I believe I have a great relationship with them, even though every now and then I do have to, what I say, fine them, and I have fined them every now and then. But they're decent guys, guys and gals, for the most part. Yeah, sir.
Answer some of your question too. Because Officer Troncoso does the initial background check, determine their suitability. You look at the driving history, criminal record, a limited view. We are currently revamping that application process a little bit to strengthen it, but to make sure we're in compliance, that we're doing what we're supposed to do and not doing too much. The other thing is, as they drive, as their drivers are around the city, we're watching. We do have drivers that are cited for traffic violations. Not many. So the officers will either inform Officer Troncoso directly, or in our reporting system, we have a taxi incident code, which would cover traffic violation or dispute or things of that nature. The Officer Troncoso also checks their driver history mid-year and checks for fresh violations. And it could be out of town, it could be, doesn't have to be Salem, and you can call them up for an explanation review. In some cases, we'll suspend the license or recommend suspension to the take it up here. Does that answer enough?
Yes, I think so. My only follow-up question would be, do those checks get conducted at point of renewal each year, or is it only on the initial license application?
Yes, on renewal, yes, on renewal, he checks that again. So it's about every 6 months he looks at their driving history, and he knows them all fairly well anyway, so he knows what's going on in their life to some degree. So everything is reviewed on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to note that Councillor Cohen has left, and I see Councillor Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the most part, I haven't difficulties to continue to hear clear, but I just wanted to comment that being very close to the police department, specifically to Officer Troncoso, that department is doing a great job, and also being very close to the taxi's owner. I know they actually try to survive in a very competitive industry, and I think that's why the conversation need to be happening, so we can have common ground on a essential service that we, as Officer Tucker just mentioned, that they provide to our community. In the other hand, not to have anything disadvantage to the consumers. So I think that's the right moment, like I mentioned in my comment before, to have that conversation. I'm looking forward to be hearing from the recommendation that we're going to have from that dynamic, and from that on, try to create a very clear ordinance that can be balanced to everyone, and then we can move forward. I cannot thank enough the police department in every aspect of what they do, and especially I know, like I say, Officer Tucker and Officer Troncoso, I know them personally, and I have met with them in some regard with some of the issues that they are facing in the past, and the way they handle it are very professional, and I know that is the will of everyone to have something that really functional for everyone. So I'm looking forward for that conversation. I have to repeat, I cannot hear pretty well all of the comments. I'm very, I say sad that I cannot be present. And I think this is a comment for the IT department that we need to fix that, because if we're going to have this type of meeting, everyone that is maybe remote might have the same issue that I have. I don't know if it is my computer, but I hardly hear every comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Dominguez. Any further comments or questions or comments from the public?
So Jose to my left said that in regards to taxis and liveries, they have a problem with insurance. So he just wants to say that yearly insurance for a taxi at about 12,500 yearly. And for a livery, yearly insurance is 3,000 yearly. So he does ask the council that a livery be able to function like a taxi so that they can survive. He also says other cities are doing this.
Thank you. Councilor Varela?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. Through you to the officers, can you guys just clarify again how many livery licenses and how many taxi licenses you guys issue?
Sure. At the moment, we have 50 livery licenses, 35, and that was changed years ago. So that's what we have right now. It's not what I have issued.
I may follow up. How many taxi licenses do you have issued?
So
A range.
right now, I have 8 taxi licenses issued, four to Salem Taxi and 4 to I believe it's which city. I'm still waiting on AmeriCab to get the insurance policy from them. So as of right now, I only have 8 issued. You said liveries too, or just
Taxis are fine.
taxis?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Presnowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that legal would be able to look up the impact of having an all-go livery and not having taxi licenses in Salem. I'm not sure whether or not legally we're capable to do that. I think if it was as easy as that, you'd find a lot of other cities and towns doing the same thing. I keep thinking back to New York when I see all the yellow cabs in New York, and you say, why does New York have so many taxi cabs? And what is the taxi cab to livery ratio in New York City? And what is the reason for that? I don't think any of us can answer that question here. I think that's something that our city solicitor should be able to take a look at. I do understand that there is a huge discrepancy between the taxi insurance and the livery insurance, and I think all of us can see that there's an unfairness there. But for us to be able to make a decision on whether or not to just get rid of taxi licenses and go all livery, I don't know whether legally we can do that. So again, this would be something that would be taken up at the committee during the negotiations. Proceeding from here.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to summarize this evening, and I also feel we do need to go back to the actual fair discussion of what is going on right now. So in summary, we have well, not in summary, but we have a motion on the floor for the city solicitor to meet with representatives from the Salem taxi companies as well as the Salem Police Department by the end of May to negotiate, review, and revise the existing ordinance that we have, and to have a fair discussion and report that back to the committee. My comments on that or the feedback of the discussions of what I've heard, the items that need to be discussed, along with kind of a housekeeping review of the ordinance and perhaps removing two-way radios and updating that to current language. But there also should be a big discussion around the taxi versus livery licenses, what our definitions of both of those are, how the fares are distinguished between the two, possible rate cards, what are the rates and the rules in the surrounding towns and areas, pricing during the Halloween season. We do have, in a lot of our other ordinances, we have special call outs for the Halloween season. So perhaps that is something that does need to be discussed. And then just other items that anybody brings to the table and wants to review. There is, as we've noted a few times, older language in there that needs to be reviewed. There are new competing entities that were not in existence 12 years ago when this was last reviewed, such as Uber and Salem Skipper. So to make sure that those are all part of the conversation as well. I would like to note too, that if anybody has anything additional to make sure that is included in that conversation, to please reach out to the city solicitor as soon as possible and provide your feedback to her as well. So that can be a part of the conversation. I'd like to go back to Lieutenant Tucker's comment about what to do right now. We know currently, as the ordinance is written for taxi licenses, 8 of which we have in the city, that the fare is $5.50 per the ordinance. We know that that is not being charged. Do we want to make any changes to right set that, or do we want to continue status quo? I'm going to put that back out to the floor. And I will also like to note that Councillor Cohen has returned. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. Should we vote on the original motion so that we can have a new motion for the current rates?
Sure, we can do that. Yep.
So I move to vote.
Thank you.
That was my council joke of the day, but I mean it.
So we're voting on Councillor Presnewski's motion, seconded by Councillor Dominguez, for the city solicitor to meet with representatives from Salem Taxi, SP, and Salem Police Department to discuss the items that were just noted, as well as any additional ones that are provided to the city solicitor or the Salem Police Department. I would also like to request the contact information so we can have that for the meeting. Councillor Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For clarification, I have a question. I hear comments saying that we're going to put a time limit. I think that Councilor Cohen presented that to be included. Is that included?
Yes, by the end of May. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I missed it. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Dominguez. So by the end of May, correct. I missed what happened. Okay, so we are going to do a roll. Do I need to do a roll? Oh, I don't need to do a roll call vote for that. Oh wait, Councillor Dominguez is remote. So I will do a roll call vote just to cover my bases. Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Presnewski?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
And Councillor Dominguez?
Yes.
And myself is a yes. So that motion passes. And open the floor for other motions or discussion. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. This is a question to you or the council president. If we make a motion, because it's an ordinance, it will require 2 passages? Yes, okay. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move, before we discuss, that we change the rate to $7 effective at second passage.
Second.
So Councillor Koshin, sorry, my battery is running low. I got distracted. Counselor Cohen moved to revise section 4438, section 1 mile or a fraction thereof from $5.50 to $7. Seconded by Counselor Varela. Under discussion. Counselor Watson-Felt, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Any discussion? Counselor Dominguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just have another question for clarification. I hear the motion that the good Councilor Ward 5 just made. Is that until we finalize with the revise of the ordinance? Or that going to be permanently for now? I think if we add in there that we actually at the end of the conversation that the group is going to have in the new ordinance, that we have to reestablish the $7 or change it the best way that is recommended by the group that is going to be working with the ordinance.
So may I?
Yes, please.
So, Council Dominguez, the way I see that playing out,
Hello, I lose you.
They heard the yelling. They're like,
Counselor Dominguez, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we had a technical blip and we went into a 1-minute recess. We actually, I think we're good to return now. Everyone good to return? Okay. Thank you. Apologies for that minor technical blip, because why not? Were you able to hear the city solicitor's response, or would you like? No. Okay. Beth, do you mind repeating?
so Counselor, my expectation, if this motion passes, is that the council will adopt that $7 rate that will go in effect during the month of May. And then subsequently, we will come back with a recommendation for further ordinance changes, which may include a further change to that section, but it may not. So I would recommend that the council do move forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So just to confirm for everyone looking at the calendar, we have our council meeting on the 28th, and then a meeting on the 12th. So if the council does agree to adopt this amendment to the ordinance, it would go into effect after that meeting on the 12th for the second passage. And also, that is just the one amendment that we're making this evening. I will paraphrase for a kind of a momentary correction with further corrections and revisions expected. So I'm going to, Councillor McLean.
Thank you, Madam Chair, not being a member of the committee. I think it's important if the council is going to adopt that as an possibly interim, possibly permanent move, that we also immediately address the question of rates being posted in the vehicles. I think allowing the rate to increase without making sure we get rid of that exploitation is really problematic. That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there currently language that the rate needs to be posted? There is, I believe.
Counselor, if I may interject, at the bottom of the ordinance, it does allow the police department to implement any regulations that they see fit. So this could be something that the police department could impose.
If I could, Chair Riccardi.
Councillor Cohen?
To the solicitor's point, since the police department can, create a regulation, I'm going to encourage them to do so as far as posting the rate, and just leave the motion at a change to $7, with a nod from the two officers that they will do that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to that language that the city solicitor was referencing. All owners and drivers of taxi cabs, liveries, limousine vehicles shall be subject to such further rules, orders, and regulations as may be set forth by the city council or the police traffic division. So that would be one that if we increase the rate, then a communication can go out to notify them that the rate be posted. And then that also be something that we consider in the overhaul of the ordinance of posting of the rates. Councillor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi. Just a quick question for the city solicitor. I'm looking at the ordinance right now in section 44-37, letter A. It does state that the rates may be changed at any time by the city council. Does that mean like any time? Or does that still hold us to the two meeting adoption?
No, the charter dictates the 2 meeting adoption.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor to move that we change the rate from 5.50 to 7? Oh, okay, I will go to a roll call vote on that. Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Presnowski?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
Councillor Dominguez?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Matter carries. Do we have any further comments or questions on this item this evening? Councillor Marcelo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As long as we have all of the taxi companies here, this never happens. I've never seen this happen, and the officers here. I'm just wondering if there's anything else that you want us to hear that's important, that you think is important for us to know about your job and about your companies.
So Jose to my left wants to address the Salem Skipper program. He said they were told that it would be going, that it operates from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. Into the Salem. What, just within Salem. Currently, they go past that later into the night and do leave Salem. And that the prices that they have, they can't compete with them. Salem Skipper. I mean, they just want to know if something can be done about that.
Counselor Marcelo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think the skippers are supposed to go outside of Salem. So I'm curious what you know about that, because I've never heard that before. So if you have anything that you want to add to that?
So he says that he has seen them outside of Salem in places such as Peabody.
Thank you. So I do know that our Salem Skipper program is run via an app, so we can definitely request that information. There are no rides given outside of the application, so we will have a record of times, dates, and location to and from. I'm also aware that they should not be outside of Salem, so I'm curious if perhaps the vehicle might be being serviced outside of the city or housed outside of the city, but we will definitely look to get some information around that from the parking and traffic director. Councilor Watson-Felt?
Thank you, Chair Riccardi, not being a member of the committee. I know that the Skipper program was recently expanded with regards to dates and hours. So perhaps that the communication hasn't been clearly made available to these guys. So I don't know if we want to take an opportunity to look at that schedule and just reiterate it now.
Mhm.
And I'll try to bring it up on my computer for you.
Thank you. I'm afraid to touch mine. I will wait 1 more minute, see if there's anything else. Was there anything further? I think we added the weekends, right?
One more thing. Say. So he's saying just in the future, he's under the understanding that these companies are the main transportation in Salem for many years. He believes they should have been consulted on Salem Skipper. Yeah, so we weren't given the opportunity to pitch in on that topic. And we are available in the future if there's ever any topic that has to do with transportation. They are available to meet.
That's perfect because we are looking to meet. outside of the committee to discuss. I'm going to bring this over now for names, emails, phone numbers. Thank you. Any comments outside of the skipper or anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for attending tonight. Thank you, Julio, for helping translate as well. We definitely do value the feedback and we'll continue the conversation. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, officers, or Officer Tronkoska and Lieutenant Tucker for attending tonight. And we also look forward to the suggestions and edits that you will bring to us next month, maybe June, for review.
Thank you. Thank you for having us in and try to make sense of it all.
Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, I think we're good to move to the second agenda item. As if, okay.
Also, would you like me to run through the claims?
Yes, please. Counselor Dominguez, we're going to move on to claims. I don't know if you have access to the folder. I could share the file that Maureen sent to me. I could screen share that. Okay. Need 1 second. Good night. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, I am Counselor Dominguez. I'm pulling up the document to share. Thank you. Okay, we have the claims list here, and I also have a folder with backup documentation if needed. We can pass it around this evening. So Beth, I think this should be in the same order.
Yes.
Okay, so the first one that I have up, but I'm not sure if it's, gracias, good night, is number 544.
It's 544. This is a claim for an open manhole at Bridge Street. Maya denied this claim because there was no notice of defect. The report went to the Department of Public Works, who also confirmed that there was no notice of this defect, was in fact repaired after the report from this claimant. And as you know, the state law provides that if there's no notice of defect, the city is not responsible. I'm recommending this claim be denied.
I believe, and I'll just do some housekeeping. Last time we went through this, we went through each one with recommendation. If there are any that we would like to individually vote on, we can, but I will just take note if anyone disagrees with the legal opinion or if we're good to move on. Okay.
Next claim is 545. This is a claim for a ticket and a tow. We did investigate this, and the DPW reports that an employee was street sweeping and got a sign off by the same police department that the signs were posted and approved by the officer in charge that the vehicle could be towed. So I'm recommending this claim be denied. The next claim is 581. I'm recommending that this claim be discharged because we have referred it to EJ's Paving, who was doing the work on Marlborough Road at the time. Next claim is 645. This is a flat tire from an exposed manhole. Recommending this be denied. Work was being performed by the city of Peabody, and the pictures actually show that this claimant's damage happened right outside the park on Marlborough Road, which is in the city of Peabody.
Madam Chair, can you please move up the
Oh, I'm
spreadsheet
sorry.
because I don't see the rest. Thank you.
So we have talked about the Gedney Court ticket in tow.
Yeah.
On the next one, which is number 122, I am recommending that that be paid. As Officer Tucker has explained, this was their mistake. They ticketed and towed a car that was actually on private property. So I'm recommending that that be paid. The next one is 124. Lieutenant Tucker explains that this woman had a dead battery, and she called the police department, and they gave her some time. They didn't specify the time to get the car removed. The car wasn't removed, and it was subsequently towed. So this is a discretionary decision by the council. You know, was there in fact enough time given to her? The vehicle was parked at 3:30 a.m. It was towed. She had called earlier that evening. So this is an issue of whether or not enough time was granted to her and whether she did provide notice to the police department.
Thank you. I'll read for the committee because there is, do you have that? I'm not sure that Counselor Dominguez has this in front of him, but Counselor Dominguez, this is the note from Lieutenant Tucker. And this is the last item, number 124 for 49 Ward Street. Ms. Schofield called the station during the morning of January 31st and asked for some time to move her vehicle from Peabody Street because it had a dead battery. Peabody Street had been restricted to parking on one side because of the snowbanks, and her car was on the restricted no parking side. On February 1st at 3:30 a.m., the vehicle was still parked in the same spot, and the officer on duty noted that a fire truck or ambulance would not be able to get through. Ms. Schofield's car was one of 12 that were towed that morning. The lieutenant did speak with her after it was towed and explained that when we gave her some time to get it moved, it was understood that she would get it done within a few hours, not the next day or beyond. And then leaving it up to the committee for final decision on this one.
Question. Can I ask a question real
Yes,
quick?
Councilor Dominguez?
The other 11 cars that was towed over there, they present a claim or no? Either one of them?
No, this is the only one that we have
One?
for this
And
date.
how long was the time frame that the police gave it to her?
She called the morning of January 31st, and the car was towed the next day, the 1st, at 3:30 a.m.
24
Doesn't
hours?
have a specific time, it just says the morning. So about 24 hours, it sounds like.
Can we have that time frame clear enough in order, because those morning time, like if she called 3 a.m., from 3 to 6 or 7, there's nothing to do. People sleeping, especially a lady. And but if she had the rest of the day, in that frame time is logical that it was appropriate enough time for her to do the battery recharge. But if no, being a lady is hard to find somebody who is manageable to do. Maybe she was waiting for someone who come in and help her. So that time frame will, to me, give me an idea clear that was fair, the time that she got. If no, I'm in favor to pay that. If we don't have that information in hand.
Sure, so just to clarify the time frame that we have noted, it was over 24 hours. So it was the 31st was when she called in the morning, and then the tow was not until the next day, the morning of the next day.
I'm in favor of paying, and I want to make a motion if I may. Madam
I'm sorry,
Chair.
Counselor, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I guess you can go.
I say I want to make a motion if I may.
Please.
I want to make a motion to pay that lady the amount of money due to the fact that being a lady is hard sometimes to get some help. Maybe she was waiting for someone to help her to give a bodily charge.
Counselor Dominguez made a motion to pay the tow. Beth, can you tell me if the ticket was waived or the 215 is at the tow or the ticket or both? The parking violation was 50 and the tow was 165, so it's both. And the ticket itself was not waived either. So, Counselor, would your motion be to, we can't waive a ticket fee, can we? Just
You can reimburse the ticket fee.
reimburse the ticket fee?
If the will is to reimburse the towing, you could certainly make that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Counselor, is your motion for the 215 total?
It's a motion to reimburse the towing.
The motion is to reimburse the total. Is there a second? Counselor Presnowski,
Under discussion, please.
please.
Thank you, Madam President. I think you can see that the police department, through the last conversation that we had with the taxi companies, has been pretty lenient as far as enforcing common sense. I would point to line 4 of the explanation in our sheets. And hopefully, Councilor Dominguez, you can see this on your screen. It says that the officer on duty noted that a fire truck or ambulance would not be able to get through. That, for the police department not to tow the vehicle for that reason immediately shows an extreme form of leniency. That vehicle, if that vehicle should have been towed immediately if it was blocking the street. If they told the woman that it was blocking the street because of the snow emergency, that vehicle should have gone right away. So I don't think the priority here is whether it's the snow removal, it's the fact that it was parked in such a position that it was blocking emergency vehicles. And that's the reason why it was towed. And I don't think that there's any reason to.
If that is the case, I decline my motion. I don't have all the file like you stated, Councilor Pronowski. I think you got all the information in your hand. I was assuming, based on the fact of that she was parking in a place where the rest of the other car that was towed was in the same place. So I decline my motion. You're right. I think that's
And I think the police were assuming that she was going to get her car out of there right away. And when 24 hours passed and they hadn't, and she hadn't gotten her car out of the way of a vehicle that was blocking the street, it was time to go.
Thank you. Counselor Dominguez removes his motion. Counselor Cohen?
No.
No? Okay. That is it. So we will need to, I would like to entertain a motion that we, for order number 544, the council comments agree with the legal opinion to deny. 545, committee agrees to deny. 581, council agrees to discharge. 645, council agrees to deny. 122, council agrees to pay. And 124, council agrees to deny. I could have said that a lot easier, whereas we moved to deny or discharge, except for 122, where we moved to pay. Councilor Cohen?
Let's see if I can get this right. So moved.
Thank you.
second.
And seconded by Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Presnowski?
Yes.
Councilor Varela? And Councilor Dominguez?
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Matter carries 5-5. Thank you. Any other? Awesome. So we are cleared for claims as of this day. There will be more. Thank you. Thank you, Counselor Dominguez. We did receive your note about the sounds. I think that's definitely something that we are continuing to work on and tweak. We have heard it from others as well, so appreciate that feedback and appreciate the patience as we continue to work through this. But if there are any questions or follow-up needed, feel free to reach out. And enjoy your trip, Counselor Dominguez. I hope you're having fun.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, Counselor Varela?
Motion to adjourn?
Counselor Varela moves to adjourn. Seconded by Counselor Presnitzky. All in favor? Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Good night.